Alrighty, everyone. Welcome back to Failing is Not an Option. It's noon here, so I can probably say good morning if you're on the other side of the world, and good afternoon if you're on the other side, I suppose. But as usual, we are always going to do these weekly question reviews from the Facebook group so that you can hear it better than me trying to type out all of the information. Last week, we were supposed to meet for our weekly group study, but I couldn't due to client. We had decided to do the DSM 5, so I got some of those DSM 5 questions from Quizlet that I wanted us to work on. So let's dive into it. But this week, I added the breadcrumbs in it so that we can see how you navigate yourself through those questions in order to find the best answer. As always, feel free to pause this video, find the best answer before I find the best answer. Alrighty, Maxine, 16-year-old black female. She's brought to therapy by her parents. She attends a private school and she's training to become a professional ballerina. She appears to be of normal weight, and according to her most recent physical, she is in good health. Her parents are concerned because they discovered that she's been eating excessive amount of fast food and she's vomiting afterwards. When the therapist asks Maxine how often she is engaging in this behavior, she states that it occurs about twice a week, but insists it's not something that she does on a daily basis. So which diagnosis should the therapist consider in this case? Feel free to look at some of those answer responses, and if you found the best answer before you unpaused it and got to the end where I reveal it, kudos to you, because whatever it is that you did, it absolutely worked. So let's reveal what this best answer is. But I want us to take a look at what I have highlighted up there. If we were taking this actual exam, I would have highlighted she appears to be of normal weight, she's been eating excessive amount of fast food, and she's vomiting afterwards. I'll get to why I have some green and some yellow and some red, okay? I also would highlight she states that it occurs about twice a week, and then which diagnosis should the therapist consider in this case? All right, so if we take a look at A says binge eating disorder. Now, it can't be binge eating disorder because with binge eating disorder, it does not come with the compensatory behaviors such as the vomiting afterwards. So we would automatically get rid of A, which is the binge eating disorder. Now, I highlighted C for anorexia nervosa because it says the vomiting afterwards. It is your distractor. C is definitely a distractor, and you should have noticed that in the vignette it says that she's of normal weight. If your vignette says that the client or the teenager, whoever the case may be, is of normal weight, you know it can't be anorexia nervosa, because if it's anorexia nervosa, they are going to be underweight. That BMI is going to be very low. C is definitely that distractor that I talk about when sometimes we don't pay attention to the entire vignette. We look at that one specific little piece and then we try to go for that little answer response. But if you were to take a look at of normal weight and the excessive amount of food and then she vomits afterwards, that would have led you to bulimia nervosa. We have enough information to say it's bulimia nervosa, and D says unspecified eating disorder. There's enough information for us to give a diagnosis. That's why B is your best answer. If that does not make sense to you and you still want further clarification, let me know which number question this is, and then leave me a comment and I will try my best to make sure that I can get you to understand it differently, okay? Alrighty. A therapist meets with the family referred by their child's school counselor. The focus of treatment is that younger child who is 8 years old. A behavior plan has been put in place for the child only early on when they were in the second grade. The child is now halfway through the third grade, and the child continues to exhibit uncontrollable verbal outbursts during the school day whenever a minor incident upsets them. The parents share that their child has exhibited similar hostilities in the home and feel like they must always walk on eggshells because the child is so irritable most of the time. What diagnosis is most appropriate in this case? Take a look at some of those answer responses. Pause the video if you need to, see if you can use some of those symptoms that you see in this question that is going to lead you to your best answer. Let's take a look at some of the breadcrumbs that I have. Now, if we were taking this exam, 8 years old, second grade, but then they're halfway through the third grade when some of those symptoms started to exhibit, right? The outburst, their uncontrollable outburst that occurs during the school day, even when it's a minor incident, it upsets them. So that tells me that this situation that is occurring does not match how this child is reacting. Is this appropriate to what is actually going on? Exhibiting similar hostilities in the home, they feel like they're walking on eggshells, and the child is irritable most of the time. That irritable most of the time is like fireworks should be going off, because that's going to definitely lead you to the best answer. A says intermittent explosive disorder. A is a bit much because we don't hear about any physical aggression towards somebody or physical aggression towards property. So you would get rid of A. Now come on now with C. Come on now. Do we really need to go through it? We know C ain't nowhere up there, right? Now, D, your oppositional defiant disorder. Now, I've explained oppositional defiant disorder so many times when I say that kid is an asshole. If you don't see any asshole behavior, do not go for oppositional defiant disorder. That's your annoying, constant, like, want to do things the way you want it done, don't want to listen, don't want to follow directions, like purposely getting on somebody's nerve. That's your oppositional defiant disorder, leading you to your best answer of what? DMDD, disruptive mood dysregulation disorder. Child is irritable most of the time. The child is 8 years old, occurs before the age of 10, right? We've got a year that this behaviors and these symptoms have been presented, leading you to your best answer response of disruptive mood dysregulation disorder. All right. At the end of her second session with Marisol, a new client, she hugs her therapist, Ms. Rivera, and tells her how relieved she feels to have finally found a therapist who knows what she is doing and is helping her feel better. Between sessions, Marisol leaves multiple messages on Ms. Rivera's voicemail with updates about her lives. Now, the question says, what should Ms. Rivera do? We've got some boundary issues that are going on in this question, so we're going to choose that answer response that is going to help us with those boundaries, right? So let's reveal. Let's look at these breadcrumbs that we have. So we have, she's hugging her therapist. Now, to be honest, I don't know, is that really a boundary that we're pushing, that she's hugging her? I mean, because Virginia Satir, she was all about, empathy and the touch and the hugs and the warm, warm connection that she has with her clients. But I still did it anyways, just for the sake that it's 2025. Okay, and between sessions, now Marisol, she's constantly leaving all these messages on her voicemail about the updates about her life. So what should Ms. Rivera do? So we have an A. Tell Marisol that due to ethical concerns, such behavior is problematic. Now, here's the thing about A. Is it really an ethical concern that she's calling a lot, or is it more like the boundaries that you can just discuss with her about, hey, we can't really do this? Not too much of a really huge ethical concern. Let's not throw that out there, because yes, boundaries is discussed in our code of ethics, but it's not that major, right? We can talk to Marisol about that, right? So we would get rid of A because that's a bit much. B says, recognize Marisol's need for positive affirmation to establish trust in a therapeutic relationship. Now I have that highlighted yellow because that could possibly be a distractor for you, because it sounds so beautiful, doesn't it? It sounds so nice. But at the same time, the constant calling and the constant leaving messages is pushing too much of the boundaries, and then it supersedes the trust that you're trying to build in that therapeutic relationship. D says, interpret her hugs and messages as indicators, of how she deems and views therapy and everything. Now, here's the thing. When we interpret something, that means that we are assuming instead of actually finding out, what's really going on. That's why D is something that is it's not enough information. But if you take a look at C, let's set some of these appropriate boundaries for this therapeutic relationship at the next session, and then we'll see how it moves, from there. Now, I've seen questions that are like this. They can be set up any kind of way, but whenever you see in a vignette boundaries that could possibly be crossed or boundaries that has the potential to be crossed, try to look for an answer response that's going to be discussing those boundaries with the client before you kind of like abandon them or get rid of them or go start talking about something that is major, that is, when you see in a vignette, is something minor like a hug or constant, calls and leaving voicemails. Okay. Alrighty. A therapist meets with a 9-year-old girl who was referred by her pediatrician due to symptoms of depression. The girl's parents are divorced, and in accordance with the custody agreement, the father consented to treatment. The custody agreement includes a provision for weekly visitation with the girl's mother. In a session, the girl tells the therapist that she hates visiting her mom, and if the father makes her go again, she would end her life by jumping off the mother's apartment balcony. What action should the therapist take in this case? I remember this question. We had some good discussions about this question and how we came to find the best answer. So take a look at some of those answer responses. Pause this video, see if you found the best answer before I can find the best answer, and let's reveal some of these breadcrumbs and kind of like solidify why this answer is the answer that it is. So 9-year-old, she's referred by her pediatrician. She has symptoms of depression, right? The father is the one that is able to consent to treatment because that is the accordance of the custody agreement, right? In red, I have highlighted hates visiting her mom, and if her father makes her go again, she would end her life by jumping off her mother's apartment balcony. That is your red flag that you cannot ignore. It has to pave way to it in your answer responses. But be careful with the answer response that you choose in accordance to that. This question is asking you what actions should the therapist take in this case. A is highlighted in yellow because that is your distractor. Initiate a 5150 to address the imminent risk of danger presented by the client's threat to end her life. Now, she said that she would jump off of her mother's apartment balcony. Is that an actual credible threat? Yes and no. In order for us to find out if it is a credible threat, we need to do what first? Take a look and go down to D. I have D highlighted in green because it says assess for the level of risk of suicide. That's how we're going to find out if has the intent. Can she actually make her way to her mother's apartment balcony, right? And the only way we will be able to find out if it's credible is if we assess for it. We don't have a full answer response that has us assessing for the level of the risk of suicide without it also having an incorrect response at the end of it. I'm still on D, so keep looking at D. D follows up then to say, and potential child abuse. Nothing in this vignette is mentioned about child abuse. Part of D is right, but the rest of D is incorrect, making D incorrect. Always keep in mind, if part of the answer is correct and the other part is wrong, that entire answer is wrong. Don't try to make it right just because the first part of it is very beautifully said, but then the end part of it, it's ugly, okay? Keep that in mind. That's why D is not your best answer. C says to file a child abuse report due to reasonable suspicion of abuse perpetrated by the girl's mother. C has you assuming and you're jumping too far. Nothing in this vignette mentions that this girl is being abused. She's 9. She could say she hates visiting her mom because her mom is probably putting her on punishment, probably putting boundaries in place, and now she doesn't want to go back. Don't misconstrue just by she saying she hates her mom that there's child abuse that is in there, because it's not. If you take a look at B, consider the issue of confidentiality and share her threat with her father. Is that beautifully said? Yes? No? Does it totally cover that answer that you were obviously looking for? No, it doesn't. But the rest of them are not viable. Only B is your viable answer to choose from. Again, I will reiterate it again. If part of the answer is right and the rest is wrong, that makes the entire answer incorrect. That is why D is not the best answer and B is the best answer. Okay? Let's do some fill in the blanks. A multi-generational transmission process describes how dysfunctional patterns, particularly in the area of what, are passed down from generation to the next. If you know your Bowen theory, you would know that this answer is definitely differentiation of self, because Bowen seemed to believe that how we differentiate ourselves can be passed down from one generation to the next. And the more that multi-generational transmission process passes those behaviors, those symptoms, those emotions that you just cannot seem to get under control when you are in the presence of your family, it's going to be pushed right on to the next person, and they're going to keep passing it down. Okay? The concept of blank refers to a three-person emotional system, which is considered the smallest stable unit of human relationships. If you know your Bowen theory, they are talking about triangles. We have two people that are possibly in some type of conflict that is going to draw that third person in, making it the smallest stable unit. But they think that it is stable because it can be. It's not decreasing any of the anxiety. It's just keeping it right where it is, which is stabilizing it, right? That is your triangle of Bowen theory. Bowen believed that the level of blank in a family system can predict the severity of symptoms and the ability of family members to handle stress. We just got finished talking about this in the first one about differentiation of self. And again, Bowen believed that your level of differentiation in a family system is going to predict that, because again, your level of differentiation, if it's not where it should be, which is as low as it possibly can be, you're going to be projecting it off onto the next person, and the next person is going to project it off to the next person. It's just going to be a continuation of a pattern of having that high differentiation that you shouldn't have, right? Because we need to do what with the differentiation, right? We have to increase the differentiation, and we need to lower the anxiety that we have within our family system. Those are your answers right there. Just wanted to make it plain for you all. Which of the following symptom presents would lead to, wait a minute, did I miss? I didn't do the other one. There was supposed to be another fill in the blank, or maybe it's a few later in. Which of the following symptom presentations would lead to a diagnosis of a hypomanic episode rather than a manic episode? Now, this is your classic question of asking you, what's the difference between bipolar 1 and bipolar 2? That's all it's asking. But it's all nice and all prettied up and dolled up about the hypomanic episode and the manic episode. But realistically, what's the difference between bipolar 1 and bipolar 2? And out of when it comes to the symptoms of the hypomania and the manic episode that you have, how can you differentiate between the difference of it? Now, in this question, well, not in the question, the answer responses, they really not big on mentioning anything about the days. And we know that that's the biggest difference when it comes to the mania and the hypomania. It's the days that they present, right? But let's take a look at some of these breadcrumbs, okay? Now, I highlighted symptom and the diagnosis of the hypomanic episode versus the manic episode. And the manic episode is written in red because you need to know the difference between the hypomanic episode and the manic episode. So, A says the symptom lasts for a minimum of 7 consecutive days. Now, that is a manic episode that they are talking about. And we need to know how the hypomanic episode presents itself. The hypomanic episode does not present itself with 7 consecutive days. That is a manic episode. B says the symptoms causes significant impairment in social functioning. That's not hypomanic. That's a manic episode. That's why it's in red. D says the symptoms require hospitalization to present harm or self. You harm to self or others. Again, that's your manic episode. But if you take a look at C, the episode is not severe enough to cause marked impairment in social or occupational functioning. Because a hypomanic episode lasts how long? For just the 4 days, right? And it's 4 days and then, hey, it'll pass. But that 7 days, that's your manic episode. That is the difference between the hypomanic episode and the manic episode, okay? All right, let's do this last one. A 28-year-old client presents with a history of at least one manic episode. Their symptoms include a decreased need for sleep, grandiosity, and engaging in risky sexual behaviors that have significantly impaired their marriage. They have also experienced a major depressive episode in the past. What is the most likely diagnosis? Okay, and even for this question, I think it was a few people that had some questions regarding it. And again, with the symptoms that are listed, it is going to lead you to your best answer. But you have to know how to navigate bipolar 1 and bipolar 2 before you can find this best answer, okay? Let's look at some of these breadcrumbs, okay? Alrighty. History of at least one manic episode. Here's the thing. Bipolar 1 comes with a full manic episode. Bipolar 2 does not. It comes with a hypomania episode, right? It can't be bipolar 2. If you take a look, I highlighted B in yellow because it's your distractor. And then I also highlighted they have also experienced a major depressive episode in the past. I get it. People, you may look at it and you may see that manic episode that happened and you see the major depressive episode. But bipolar 2 does not have a manic episode. It only has a hypomanic episode, making B your distractor, making B incorrect. Once you saw the one manic episode, you should have already ruled out bipolar 2. That should have led you to bipolar 1. Bipolar 1 has your manic episode. You do not need a major depressive episode to be diagnosed with bipolar 1. You only need that one manic episode, which is 7 days. That should have led you to bipolar 1. I say that to say this. Stay the course. Do not go for the distractor. That last little sentence, that was meant to distract you and to put you with bipolar 2. But you know that bipolar 2 comes with hypomania and major depressive. Bipolar 1 comes with mania lasting 7 days. Stay the course. Don't go for those distractions. The exam is meant to do that to you. Don't allow it to do that to you. Alrighty, this sums up our weekly study session for the DSM-5, and then I threw in some of those fill in the blank questions. I hope each and every one of you had a better understanding to how to navigate the DSM-5 questions. If you still feel that you do not understand a question, please leave me a comment, leave me a question, contact me on Facebook, send me a text message. I do not want to steer anyone wrong, okay? I am here for your support. Alrighty, I will talk to you all soon. I look forward to Wednesday night study group at, let's see, should I do 6:30 or 7:30? I will let you all know, but we are definitely going to meet this Wednesday. I'm not budging with my clients this week. I will definitely meet with you all this Wednesday. Alrighty, I will see you all soon.